Hi and welcome to this week's book episode of the Consented Narrative. We'll be looking at Knife by R.J. Anderson. Now, this is a fairy story, but not a fairy story. So basically, Knife is the main fairy, and the fairies in it's a book series, by the way, and I have read them all and I thoroughly enjoyed them. And I don't even remember how I came onto them. I've had these for years. And it starts off with like these fairies live in this oak, and it's shielded from humans and everybody else because they're dying out. There's only female fairies in this little encampment. But basically there's this one that's restless and Knife, funnily enough, and she wants to go out and she wants to find other fairies, and she wants, do you know what I mean, and build up because she knows what they used to be. And for some unknown reason as well, in like you're told that the only way for a new fairy to be born is for an old fairy to die and leave behind like an egg, but that very rarely happens. So more people are dying, but then they're not leaving behind anybody to continue. So they're basically dying out with no known how to. So this book follows Knife, the main fairy, and so not all the fairies can fly as well. They have a lot of issues. Not a lot. They don't have magic and stuff like that. They've got wings, but they do struggle. So then this fairy becomes friends with this little boy, who is in a wheelchair because he had an accident, and so he can no longer use his legs and everything like that. But honestly, it's such a heartwarming little sort of like friendship that grows, and the story is well written, and it leaves you wanting more, and then it gives you more, and you just want to be in this world. You want to go out and see an old tree and go, that's where the fairies live, and it just brings back a little bit of magic into your life without it being all fun and fantasy free. It's very down to earth, magical and fairy, which I never thought I would say those words. It's not over the top. It's not sort of like, everybody in the fairy meadowland loved each other very much. There's still dangers, there's still everything like that. And when she makes friends with the human, basically it's just this whole thing grows, and they've got their own myths and legends and history, and it's trying to just and then you see the myths and the legend and the history being told in the human world as well, and something doesn't add up, and it's this Knife teaming up with this little boy, and they just, I say little boy, I keep saying he's I think he's about 15. He's not a little boy. But they team up and they kind of try and figure out what's happened and how they can restore magic and everything like that, and how they can restore her tribe basically back to full compassion. And it's so enjoyable to read, and it is a very, very good book because it's so well written that you don't realize how much you've read until you've finished, and you go, "Ooh, what about the next one?" So I would recommend this book because it is, also Knife is a badass, they're like, she really is, and I absolutely adore her. I adore her character and what she becomes in the later books as well. And if you're anything like me, when you read the first book in the series, you will want to read the rest, because honestly I was like, I need to know what happens next, I have to. Whereas like with Sword in the Stone that I did the other week, I'm not that bothered about reading the rest of the series. With Mortal Instruments that I did last year, I read it and I was like, this is enjoyable. If I read the other books in the series, it's not the end of the world. But this is like a Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children kind of situation, where I ended up buying all 3 of those books at once because my siblings all recommended it to me. Every single one of them was like, you have to read this. So all my siblings were like, read it. So I bought all 3 at once because I was like, and I'm glad I did. But it's the same with this. Literally, I bought this first one and then I was like, I need to know what happens next. So I bought the rest of the series straight off. So I would 100% recommend it. And it gets a 4 out of 5 from me. So if you agree or disagree with anything that I say, leave it below in the comments. If there's any books you'd like me to review, any books, film adaptations you'd like me to do, please leave them below in the comments. Thank you so much for your continued support, guys. Remember to always keep it contented.